Thank you, Matea, for giving me such introduction. In fact, I'm very, very far from being a leading landslide researcher in Slovenia. So I owe a big thank to my co-authors, Matea, Matjaž, and Timotej, for giving me opportunity to present an outline of what was done in the recent years in the field of landslide research and also application of our results. Not only the co-authors, also many authors that work on this, and many researchers are included in this presentation. So in turn, and instead of expanding the thanks, I decided to hijack a part of presentations to show also something beyond active landslide research. Not beyond, but before. And this is partly also, in part because of this is the part that I am scientifically more comfortable with. And the other part is that I believe that, being a geologist, I know that the landslides haven't started today or yesterday, but the landslides have been with us throughout the geological history. I'm sure that we are all aware of this, but I'm also sure that it can't be too many times that it has to be shown and exhibited that we only live in a slice of geologic history, and the things that are happening today have happened before and will happen again. Whatever we do, we just have to learn how to live with those, and of course we can mitigate. So what's the story behind? The story behind is Africa is approaching Europe, and it's being invasive, and it's coming toward us, let's say, with a half a centimeter a year. Not only that, we have to change this a little bit. We don't only have Africa approaching. We have, of course, it's Europe. We have a little complication in between, which is called Adriatic microplate. It has its own behavior. It's moving a little bit slower than the whole system, but still, Adriatic microplate is approaching with a velocity of about, let's say, millimeters per year toward Europe. It doesn't just travel in any direction. It does have its behavior. So it's rotating slowly, meaning that we have most of displacement going on due south, due southeast, but also in Slovenia the displacement are significant. Anyhow, the whole thing is turning at approximately 0.3 degrees per million years. It doesn't sound much, but it's much when it comes to geology and when it comes to adaptation of nature to these kind of changes. What's happening because of this motion? We have displacements. We have strike-slip displacement, which are, at least in our country, predominant, owing to this process, but maybe more directly related to what the conference is devoted here, is the uplifts that are either related directly to thrusting or maybe just folding, but anyhow we have differential displacements that cause instabilities. What happened in these countries and all the countries around here, of course, is that we have a fairly complex geologic and tectonic pattern, fairly complex geologic buildup of the area, not only because of what's happening today, but there were changes in stress regime throughout time. It changed from east to west, to north to south, south to north, in all directions. So now there's still a question, of course, which regularly comes to Slovenian geologists, and I'm sure to any other geologist. How comes that we have fish on the top of Triglav mountain? Well, because of this, because we have had ever-going tectonic displacement, and the results are just immense when you put everything into geological context and into geological time frame. what is the direct consequence of nowadays this movement is the earthquakes. It's something that we feel. We don't feel millimeter per year. We don't see it except with high tech, but we do feel earthquakes. And Slovenia is, of course, as well as any country living in the around the Adriatic microplate or on it and beyond, of course, is prone to earthquakes. It's somehow grouped in several parts of the country, so we have a bit more hazard in the, let's say, in this belt stretching from the northwest to southeast. And if I'm given the opportunity, I would like to just note that there is a significant change in earthquake frequency and earthquake magnitude somewhere around the major tectonic structure called the peri-Adriatic structure. It doesn't mean that there is no earthquakes north of it, but they are different and they are not directly related to the very same processes we are talking about here. And of course, there's uplift, which we mentioned before. So when we are squeezing the Adriatic microplate into Europe, it's like squeezing the sponge, so something has to move. There's no space. There's some indentation, but the rest has to be accommodated by the uplift. This is a figure that I do like to show, but it's not completely right, so don't take it too seriously. It just shows the trends. It does show the trends, so this is the profile we made from the Adriatic into the Alps, saying that when we come to the Alpine front, there is a huge increase in vertical velocity. The vertical velocities here are most probably maybe even off the order of magnitude, but they do show the trends, and this was done with a very, very, let's say, old school method. These are repeated leveling lines, so the traditional geodetic methods. The geodesists remeasured the loop around along the railway from the coast into the Alps, and when they were repeating the measurement, they noted that things don't go together. So, you know, the geodesists, they are very, very, very strict, and when they make a loop, they want to have the zero result at the end. And they show through the years, they noticed that the loop is not getting together and the error is getting bigger. So they started thinking and they started consulting us, and we realized that most probably, or quite evidently, the reason is in the tectonics. And it does coincide with what we know and what we learned in the past about the tectonics of the area. There are, of course, also more sophisticated results or more up-to-date methodologies that show the same result, but this one is kind of interesting because there is the data was there since the 70s nearly. And clearly nature tends to equalize what's going on. It tends to get even. So what goes up must come down. Not only in the past, as we all know, also in the present, the landslides are taking care of that. Beside, of course, the slow processes that are not that disastrous, that we don't feel so evidently in our daily lives. There are different processes of erosion. But landslides are a matter of concern today. And this is the printout of the current of the Slovenian landslide database at its current stage. So the landslides are numerous, of course. This is the density of landslides. I think that in average in the database we have about one landslide per each 2 square kilometers, but the density goes up to about 20, 30, so tens of landslide per square kilometers, depending on geological buildup and and instability of the area. We have it all, of course, from small size, nearly negligible, to those we could call disastrous, claiming casualties, claiming material damage, and so on. As I said in the beginning, as we all know, the landslides haven't started yesterday, and it's not only about tectonics, and it's not only about availability and the rock, but it's also about triggering factors. There is, of course, a huge understanding now that the climate and the climatic factors are a triggering factor to the landslide occurrence, and a very fashionable, not too new anymore, is the word the climate change. So how the climate changes affect the instability and changes in nature's, and of course the frequency of landslides as well, going with that. But as you all know, the climate change is not a yesterday thing. It's not something that's related only to human activity. Of course, so evidently it is. But what we are seeing now and what we are following now is nothing compared to what was happening in the past with the climate. So the climate has affected appearance of landslide, and it was drastic. So this is a climatic curve or oxygen isotope curve for the last 2.6 million years for the Quaternary. And if we only zoom into, this is a very, very low resolution oxygen curve, so the temperature curve. If we zoom just to last 100,000 years, we can see drastic changes. And we zoom just to the last 10,000 years. So since the last glaciation, we can see the immense rise of temperatures throughout in our geographic area, and evidently it couldn't have been without any consequences. The changes, yes, they are here, and they have always been here, and they will always be here. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop releasing greenhouse gases, of course, and we shouldn't take care of nature. We can only benefit from that, and we can only benefit from that. But when I said we've seen nothing yet, I hope we won't see what was happening in the last 10,000–15,000 years. So this is the view from pretty much from the Triglav mountain towards the Bohin Valley. Nowadays, from a plane, how it looks these days. And this is how it looked just 15,000, maybe even just 12–13,000 years ago. So at the time when people were walking around. So many of you are geologists. You know that in geology 10–15,000 years is today, right? And if we add that people were around here, modern people at the time, well, can we call what we see today extreme climate changes? I don't think so. This is what a kilometer of ice was in Bohin when our predecessors were already walking around. Maybe we could even found a DNA of somebody who was walking these hills at that time, in some of us. So there was a load of a kilometer of ice, beside everything else that is brought with the climate change. When you release a kilometer of load, something will be happening inevitably, and it did happen in big time. It did happen big time. So a couple of years ago, we were able to go investigating the past events. I wouldn't say it from the far geological history, because, as you know, there were landslides all the way back to the beginning of geological history, and actually they are being very well investigated, going also for the Triassic, for the Permian, and they give many answers about the climate and the environment of the day. In this very research, we went into the quaternary evidence. So we were speculating that we are looking for glacial or post-glacial events observable in the pre-Alps or in the fringes of Slovenian Alps. And so we went digging into some of the alluvial, presumably alluvial fans to find what was happening in the sense of mass wasting at that time. We made some spectacular pictures there. I like to show this. This is the evidence of stupidity, being very close to winning the Darwin Award for being killed by stupidity. I dare saying it because it's me on the picture. So since then we are not climbing into this kind of holes without protection anymore. Thankfully we were lucky enough, so nobody died then. But we also got the chance to log the walls. At several places when we dug into the alluvial fence, we were able to identify a couple of historic events that were synchronous or deposited just after one of the glacial events. So at one of the places in the Karawanka, so it's all about Karawanka Mountains. So it's the valley between Karawanka and Julian Alps in the far northwest of Slovenia. So in one place at Trebižo we found till, so glacial deposit at the bottom, and two events of let's say, debris flow deposition. And even though the material was not too favorable for OSL dating, we were able to obtain two dates quite far apart, but still good enough so we could date those into either end of last glaciation or maybe into one of the warmer events during the last glaciation. So the other place where we were able to get a more concise date was again in the Karawanka Mountains, where we found a debris flow and a Sturzstrom overlying it. And interestingly, the radiocarbon date, which was much more reliable than OSL, showed 11,500 years before present, which is right the end of glaciation in this part. So transition from the Holocene, from the Pleistocene to the Holocene. Huge climatic turnover in this area. And the last one, we were able to identify two events, most probably related to either one of the warmer events in the last glaciation, so in the Wurmian, in the alpine sense, or at the transition between the penultimate and ultimate glaciation, so that would mean isotope stage between 5 and 4, somewhere there. Also in the Bovec Basin, if you're familiar with, I don't think, are you visiting Bovec in Friday? No. Bovec Basin is a beautiful alpine basin, intermountain basin, infilled with billions of cubic meters of former debris flows and glacial deposits. We were able to date those to somewhere around 150,000 years, maybe a bit less. Again, most probably to one of the deglaciation periods, most probably between the mid and late Pleistocene. So we learned that the whole idea of Bovec Basin, or whole idea of the infill of the Bovec Basin, which is tectonically very, very active, it's changing rapidly. The whole idea of the thick infill is related to huge mass wasting events, catastrophic mass wasting events that haven't stopped in the Pleistocene. The last one was happened there in year 2000. It's called the debris flow Storže or log pod Mangatom. It caused casualties, it caused damage, extensive damage, and it's just one of the events as a follow-up of the events of the transition from the Pleistocene to the Holocene, evidently. The sediment looks pretty much identical to the one found in the Pleistocene. So what do we have today? We have a country which is geomorphically very diverse, which is geologically very diverse, which of course mean in turn that we have a lot of landslides and related processes, and when we add triggering factors, which is mainly rainfall, and of course something caused also by dynamics, by earthquakes, that was evident after the 1998 earthquake in Bovec in 2004, where actually the European macroseismic scale was adapted to the natural not casualties, to the damage in nature instead of just to the damage on buildings. There was a couple of major events from which pretty much majority of Slovenian landslides were triggered. Those are events that are listed here. Then there's human activity, of course. The stupidity of man is just incredible. This is something that you can always rely on. The stupidity and the incredible shortness of memory. We made in the framework of the project, we were investigating the previous events, so the Pleistocene events. We also made a research on psychological part of human acceptance of disaster, and the results were disastrous. I mean, humans, we have pretty much 10 to 20 years of memory of where disaster has struck and where disaster will strike again. So after 5, 10, 20 years, we start building exactly where we were always told, always, for the last 5 years, never to build again. And this is something we have to rely on, or not really rely on. We have to understand, and we have to have it in our minds when we are dealing with human factor. So when I go back to rainfall in 94 to 2008, related to bigger events, the damage was about 100 million in Slovenia only. If we spread it a little bit, we see that we funneled down the drain more than 100 million in just last 25 years, and not only that, 15 people died because of processes related to landslides, which is a worrying thing, given that whatever we think of our economy and our country and this area of the world, we are all here rich countries. We shouldn't allow people to be killed because of landslides anymore. I claim we are rich enough not to allow people to be killed because of landslides. In Slovenian legislation, some parts are well taken care of when it comes to landslides, as opposed to others that are not. So we have prevention and intervention at a high level, being controlled by administration for civil protection and disaster relief. They're also investing in some research. They are they're updating plans regularly. We do have some remediation measure taken care of by a Ministry of the Environment and Spatial Planning, or whatever the ministry is called after any election. Pretty much Ministry of Environment. But when it comes to urban planning or to spatial planning, the situation is not as good as we would like to have it. The only piece of legislation that actually tackles the issue of landslides is the Water Act. So it tackles the phenomena that are directly or indirectly related to water. when it's outside of, let's say, the water domain, there is absolutely nothing, no piece of operational legislation that would take landslide into account when it comes to spatial planning. I can't tell you why. We are working hard to help in pushing it forward, in doing something in this respect. There are some signs also at this moment that maybe some changes will be made, some improvement will be made. We hope for the best. Thankfully, the research hasn't stopped. In turn, it has increased its intensity in the last couple of years. I could say quite incredibly. We have good results. We have good cooperation nationally and internationally. One of the examples is, of course, this distinguished group that gathered here. One was a bigger event in May, June 2017. And the group, as I said before, the quality and quantity of research is really growing. We have a couple of funding schemes from which we can perform our investigations, from purely scientific to applied research, and there's also some application that's going on in the market that's taking into consideration the most recent results, and we can be only happy about that. So the fundamental research is mainly funded by Slovenian research and agency, and then there are ministries, agencies, local communities that also fund some research, and from year to year more we rely on European funds, and that's a good asset to our research. So the results are quite, I could say, given what's applied in the country in the field of spatial planning and what we have available, the gap is immense. So we do have things ready. We can't wait to implement this into spatial planning. So to start with what we have at the moment, we are building on the previous attempts to create a landslide database. It started in the 90s, and then with a couple of attempts we came to the current state when we are preparing the application and the database, an application called A+, so E-landslide, something like that. It does not have a status of official database yet. We hope to get to the point where it will become a national database with the official status. But it's getting better, it's being filled up. It's being put together with the research organization, with the Agency for Civil Protection and Disaster Relief, Ministry of Environment, and municipalities. It provides a simple interface through which the local communities and other stakeholders are uploading their data to the database. And of course, it's not just automatical blind feeding of the database. We have a team working on clearing up the doublets, clearing up all the systematic errors and non-systematic errors that were placed into the database in the past. And it's very soon to be operational, I guess, finally, right? What we have also, we have susceptibility maps at the national level at a scale of 250,000, which are used for, of course, for overview purposes, not for any operational actions. We had a situation a couple of years ago because there is some European legislation that requires, and also Slovenian legislation that requires the government to provide the database of on potential risk and danger. And some official decided that this would be appropriate, and they put it on a digital map viewer where you could zoom into this map to any kind of scale. So this is the map that has a pixel cell of 300 by 300 meters, and you were able to zoom it in completely, and some even issued some building permits upon that. And because it was needed by outside pressure, let's say, yeah. It took us 2 years to enable this map to be removed from the map viewer used for spatial planning. So we hope it will never appear there again, but it can happen too. Anyhow, it's very useful for general overview of the country. So this is the landslide susceptibility map. We have debris flow susceptibility map, and also rockfall susceptibility map for the whole country. And it was done by univariate statistical analysis, taking into account all possible natural factors that could be put in calculation, and what I see as very important, field testing, field reconnaissance and field testing of result, which would puts the results of the model constantly under testing and under revision, which would yield in a better result at the end. A very similar methodology was then finally applied also for susceptibility maps at the scale of 1 to 25,000. So this is already something that we claim is useful for spatial planning. It's precise enough, the data quality is good enough, and again, beside the numerical modeling, we did a lot of field testing to get to the results, so we are quite confident with what we have in hand. It ended with a municipality, we made it for municipality per municipality. We created a map of susceptibility, very simple one, color-coded from green to red, so any end user could understand it, and also equipped with some recommendation for the end user. What we did technically, we put all this on the web application, and we limited simply with a simple technical measure the possibility to zoom. As you know, we users, we are always inclined to get all the information what technique allows us, and 25,000 is good enough for some planning, but it's not good enough to divide a piece of land to green and to red if it's just too small. We were quite cautious about how to prevent the misuse of data. Maybe I should show this too for any municipality. This was a pilot project, so we were selected. 14 municipalities were selected by us and Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning at the time to do a pilot project. And for those, we also created some details, so to show what can be done if we go in full force with field teams and create maps at the scale of 1 to 5,000 size time. 5,000. That's completely, it's pretty different, and those were used as insets into 25,000 maps to show the difference and similarity between the two. Also here we limited the zooming possibility and integrated it into a municipal map. This is one example of integration where we see that the results are similar but not completely the same. So field testing does yield some difference in results that is significant. The latest development in what we are doing in the country is in good part comprised in the project called MASPREM, or a system called MASPREM. We are coupling the results of what I shown before, so the susceptibility models, with weather forecasts, and we are trying to create a near real-time forecasting system for landslide. It's in the testing phase. It gives good results, and is being developed together with the agency for I said no, not environment, with you. About environment, yeah, okay, so with help of environment, but under funding of civil protection and disaster relief. I said it before and I forgot it. Thank you. We are really happy for this cooperation. It enables really a good result, and we see in foresight that the result is coming to be very, very operational. Beside the forecasting system, we are preparing exposure maps of inhabitants, constructions, and infrastructure. This is, of course, a way forward from the susceptibility maps. As you heard, all this is based on scientific research, years of scientific research, and for the end I would just like to show you last couple of slides what is going on recently in the field. We have also flying drones on a couple of landslides. In fact, we are building somehow through time one landslide called Potoška planina is turning into a small lab in nature, where we are on an actual case that is causing a serious concern about the hazard to the inhabitants. There was so much investigation done that we can upgrade and update on those, and at the moment there are actual plans on preparing the remediation plan for the landslide. So it's been investigated back in the time with radar interferometry, with GPS. Now there is photogrammetry, photogrammetric investigations going on, 3D cameras, terrestrial geodesy. Now at the moment we are drilling and doing geophysics on the site. There were other PS-INSAR studies in the past, covered the Bovec area for the uplifts, Ljubljana area for tectonic activity, Maribor area for stability, and also for mass movements, and they gave interesting results, some of them very useful, some less at the time, and they are going on. Still, as I noticed, there is a number of EU-funded projects from various schemes. This is simply a snowball that's rolling now. The whole landslide community of Slovenia is involved in so many international activities that it started rolling such that the projects are coming in, and we welcome them warmly, I would say. As you heard today, Slovenia is active in ICL, very active. From 2008, Faculty of Civil and Geodetic Engineering has been member. Geological survey entered in 2011, and in 2016 Faculty of Natural Sciences and Engineering also joined. We are also all members of the Adriatic Balkan Network since 2012. And we are involved in several IPL projects. Several of them are proposed at the moment. We hope for a good outcome. And what was mentioned today already, and we are proud of, University of Ljubljana with its Faculty of Civil and Geodetic Engineering has been awarded a title of World Center of Excellence since 2008 already on several topics. And last year, Geological Survey of Slovenia was also awarded a title of Center of Excellence. So we are, I can claim, both very proud of both titles. And to show that it's true, these are the pictures from the World Landslide Forum held here in May and June 2017. This is the distinguished group where we belong. So out of 20 centers, 2 are from Slovenia. And if you don't believe the mass picture, here are the details. So Matea and Matjaž with their awards for 2017 and until 2020. So I thank you for your attention. If there will be some question, I will ask my colleagues to answer because they know more about landslides than me. So, but please go ahead, feel free to answer anything, to ask anything.